Daehyun's 4 eyes hurt from staring at the display screen for too long. He blinked them one pair at a time, the way his people always did when they were tired. The Galactic Mapping Institute was quiet at this hour. Most of the other workers had gone home to their quarters on Vertex Prime Station. But Daehyun stayed. Something was wrong with the star charts, and he could not stop looking. He was a cartographer. His job was simple. He updated maps of the galaxy as new information came in. Ships traveled to distant stars, sent back data, and Daehyun put that data into the official charts. He had been doing this work for 3 years now. It was boring most days, but he liked boring. Boring meant everything made sense. Today did not make sense. Daehyun pulled up another old map on his second screen. This one was from the Tolgrim Merchant Guild, dated 200 years ago. He compared it to the newest human survey data on his main screen. Then he pulled up a Vril military chart from 150 years back. Then a Karathi exploration map from 300 years ago, before humans had even joined the galactic community. Every single map stopped at the same place. The border was perfect. Too perfect. It ran along the edge of what was now human-controlled space like someone had drawn it with a ruler. Beyond that line, every map showed nothing. Empty space. Void. No stars, no planets, no anything. But Daehyun's deep space scanner data showed something else. Beyond that border, there were thousands of stars. Whole solar systems that should be on the maps, but were not. Someone had left them off. Every civilization, every species, for at least 300 years, had made the exact same choice to leave the same region blank. That was impossible. Daehyun's antennae twitched with nervous energy. He zoomed in on the border region, studying it closely. The human colonies were all properly marked. Their trading posts, their stations, their worlds, all there on the charts. But past the last human outpost, nothing. Just a line that might as well have been a wall. Working late again? Daehyun jumped, his chitin rattling. He spun around to see Minho standing in the doorway. The human liaison officer smiled, holding 2 cups of something hot that steamed in the cool air. "You scared me," Daehyun said, pressing one hand to his chest where his 3 hearts were beating fast. "Sorry." Minho walked over and set 1 cup on Daehyun's desk. "Brought you some tea. You look like you need it." "Thank you." Daehyun picked up the cup, but did not drink. He looked at Minho carefully. The human was always friendly, always helpful. They had worked together for 2 years, but right now, Daehyun wanted to ask him something, and he was not sure how Minho would react. Minho glanced at the screens. His smile stayed in place, but something changed in his eyes. Something cold. "What are you working on?" "Star charts," Daehyun said. Strange how. Daehyun turned back to his screens. "Look at this. Every map we have, from every civilization, stops at the edge of human space. See this line? Nothing goes past it. But the sensor data shows stars out there. Lots of them. Why are they not on any maps?" Minho was quiet for a long moment. He sipped his tea slowly. When he spoke, his voice was softer than before. "Maybe. There is nothing worth mapping out there. But there are stars. Empty stars," Minho said. "Dead systems. No planets, no resources. Why waste time mapping nothing? Then why does the line match perfectly across maps made by different species at different times?" Daehyun's voice grew more excited despite his worry. "The Korathi made maps before they ever met humans. Their maps stop at the same place. How is that possible?" Minho set down his cup. He looked at Daehyun with an expression that was hard to read. "Some borders exist for a reason, my friend." "What reason?" "A good one." Minho's smile returned, but it did not reach his eyes this time. "Listen, Daehyun. You are a good cartographer. Very thorough. But sometimes, the maps are the way they are because that is how they should be. You understand?" Daehyun did not understand. "But, drop it," Minho said. The words were not loud, but they were firm. Trust me on this. There are some questions it is better not to ask. Before Daehyun could respond, Minho picked up his tea and walked away. At the door, he paused. Go home soon, okay? Get some rest. You have been working too hard. Then he was gone. Daehyun sat alone in the mapping room, staring at his screens. His antennae were flat against his head now, the way they got when he was confused or scared. Minho's reaction had been wrong. All wrong. A human who normally talked about everything had just told him to stop asking questions. Why? Daehyun looked at the border on his screen again. That perfect line. That impossible line. He opened a new search in the archive database. Maybe there were older maps. Maps from before the current galactic community. Maps that showed what was really out there. The search took several minutes. Most files were locked behind security clearances he did not have. But finally, one result came back. A fragment of a map, dated 400 years ago. It had been marked for deletion, but never fully removed from the system. Daehyun opened it with shaking hands. The map appeared on his screen, old and damaged. Parts of it were corrupted, but enough remained. And what it showed made Daehyun's 3 hearts freeze. Beyond what was now human space, there had been civilizations. The map showed them clearly. Dozens of populated systems, trade routes, colony worlds, cities on planets that now appeared on no modern chart. They were all gone. Daehyun zoomed in on one system. The old map listed it as Solak Prime, population 40 billion. He checked that same location on the current charts. According to every modern map, there was nothing there. Not even a star. But the sensor data said otherwise. There was a star at those exact coordinates. And when Daehyun pulled up the deep scan information, he saw something that made him feel sick. The star was there. The planets were there. But the readings showed they were dead. Burned. The planetary surfaces registered temperatures that meant everything had been melted down to glass. Someone had not just destroyed those worlds. Someone had erased them from history. And the only people who controlled that entire region of space now were the humans. Daehyun closed all his screens with trembling hands. He sat in the dark room, listening to the quiet hum of the station's life support. His mind raced with terrible questions he suddenly did not want to answer. What had happened out there beyond the maps? Who had lived there? And what had the humans done to them? He thought about Minho's words. Some borders exist for a reason. What reason could justify erasing entire civilizations from the charts? Daehyun stood up on shaky legs. He needed to tell someone. His supervisor, Hyejin, would know what to do. She was old and wise. She would help him understand. He gathered his data files and headed for the door, trying not to think about the cold look in Minho's eyes when he had told Daehyun to drop it. Some questions, Daehyun was beginning to realize, were dangerous to ask. But now that he had seen the truth, how could he possibly stop? The map ended at human space for a reason. And somewhere in the dark, beyond that line, billions of people who used to exist had been completely forgotten. Daehyun needed to know why. Hyejin had not helped. In fact, she had made things worse. You will forget about this, his supervisor had said, her antennae flat with disapproval. Whatever you think you found, you are wrong. The maps are correct. They have always been correct. But I saw. You saw nothing. Hyejin had leaned across her desk, her 4 eyes hard and cold. Daehyun, I like you. You are a good worker. So I will tell you this once. There are things in this galaxy that are not our business. The humans have been good neighbors for 300 years. They trade fairly. They keep the peace. We do not ask them uncomfortable questions, and they do not give us uncomfortable answers. Do you understand? You know something, Daehyun had said quietly. You know why the maps end there. Tran, what I know is how to keep my job and stay alive. He-jin had replied. I suggest you learn the same. That conversation had been 3 weeks ago. Dae-hyun had tried to forget. He had tried to go back to his normal work, updating trade routes and marking new colonies. But every time he looked at a star chart, he saw that border. That perfect, impossible line where the maps stopped and the truth began. He could not let it go. So now he sat in a dark bar on the lower levels of Vertex Prime, waiting for someone who might be crazy enough to help him. The bar was called the Wanderer's Rest, and it catered to ship captains and merchants who did not ask too many questions about cargo or destinations. Ji-won arrived exactly on time. The Tolgrim merchant was tall and thin, with blue skin and too many fingers. She slid into the booth across from Dae-hyun and grinned, showing sharp teeth. So, she said, you are the bug who wants to fly into forbidden space? I am Vril. Not a bug, Dae-hyun said, stiffly. Sure, sure. Ji-won waved a 6-fingered hand. My navigator said I was crazy to meet you. Said anyone asking questions about the human border is asking for trouble. But I like trouble. It pays well. So talk. What do you want? Dae-hyun pulled out a datapad and slid it across the table. I want you to take me past the edge of mapped space. Just beyond the human border. I need to see what is really out there. Ji-won picked up the pad and scrolled through the information. Her grin faded. You want to cross into human territory without permission, and then jump beyond their furthest outpost into completely uncharted space? Yes. Why? Because the maps are lying, Dae-hyun said. There used to be civilizations out there. Billions of people. They are all gone now. And someone erased them from every chart in the galaxy. I need to know what happened. 1941. Ji-won was quiet for a moment. Then she laughed. But it was not a happy sound. You know what everyone says about the human border, right? The unofficial rule? What rule? Do not cross it. Do not ask about it. Do not even look at it too hard. Ji-won leaned back in her seat. 300 years. And no one has ever crossed that line without human permission. No one. Because they are afraid, Dae-hyun said. Because they are smart. Ji-won tapped the datapad. But I am not smart. I am greedy. What are you paying? Ji-won tapped the datapad. Ji-won tapped the datapad, Dae-hyun told her. It was everything he had saved in 3 years of work. Ji-won whistled. That is a lot of money to die for. Okay, bug. I will do it. But we leave in 2 days. And if we get caught, you never met me. Deal? Deal. They shook hands, or whatever passed for a handshake between a Vril and a Tolgrim. Dae-hyun felt his hearts racing with fear and excitement. He was really doing this. He was going to find the truth. The ship was called the Times Distant Shore Asterisk, and it was smaller than Dae-hyun had expected. Ji-won met him at the docking bay with her navigator, a nervous-looking female named So-min, who kept glancing around like she expected security to arrest them at any moment. This is a terrible idea, So-min muttered as they loaded supplies. The worst idea. We are going to die, and no one will even find our bodies. You said that already, Ji-won replied cheerfully. 3 times during breakfast. Because it is true 3 times over. Dae-hyun was stowing his equipment when he heard boots on the deck behind him. He turned to see a human walking up the ramp. The man was middle-aged, with gray hair and a calm expression. He carried a single bag. Who are you? Ji-won demanded, hand moving to the weapon at her belt. My name is Kyung-soo, the human said. I am your observer. We did not request an observer. I know. Kyung-soo smiled. It reminded Dae-hyun of the way Minho had smiled in the mapping room, friendly but cold underneath. But your flight plan was flagged when you filed it. Any ship heading toward the border gets an observer. It is procedure. Procedure? Ji-won repeated flatly. Standard procedure, Kyung-soo agreed. Dae-hyun and Ji-won exchanged looks. They both knew this was not normal. But what could they do? If they refused, the flight would be cancelled. If they ran, they would be caught. Fine, Jiwon said finally. But you stay out of my way. Of course. They launched 3 hours later. The Time's distant shore times pulled away from Vertex Prime and set course for the edge of known space. For the first 2 days, the journey was quiet. They passed several human colony worlds, all clearly marked on the charts. Traffic was normal. Everything seemed fine. But Salmon was right to be nervous. Dae-hyun could feel it. The closer they got to the border, the stranger things became. On the 3rd day, they passed a derelict station. It was old. Very old. And it hung in space like a dead thing. The design was not human. It was not Vril, or Tolgrim, or Korathi either. It was something else. What is that? Dae-hyun asked. Kyung-soo came to stand beside him at the window. A warning, he said quietly. A warning of what? That you should turn back. But they did not turn back. They kept going. And the warnings multiplied. More derelict stations. Debris fields that spread across entire regions of space. Old navigation buoys that transmitted messages in languages the ship's computer could not translate. But Salmon managed to decode one of them using pattern analysis. Turn back, she read aloud, her voice shaking. That is what they all say. Turn back. Do not go further. Death waits beyond. Whose stations are these? Dae-hyun asked Kyung-soo. The human was looking out at the debris with sad eyes. They belonged to people who did not turn back when they were warned. A long time ago. People who lived beyond the border? Yes. What happened to them? Kyung-soo turned to look at Dae-hyun directly. We did, he said. The words hung in the air like a blade. Somin made a small, frightened sound. Even Jiwon went pale. You killed them? Dae-hyun whispered. We did what we had to do, Kyung-soo said. And soon you will understand why. On the 5th day, they reached the border. Jiwon brought the ship to a stop right at the edge of mapped space. Beyond the window, stars glittered in the darkness. Empty space. Or was it? Last chance to turn around, Jiwon said. She was trying to sound brave, but her hands shook on the controls. Dae-hyun thought about Haejin's warning. He thought about Minho's cold eyes. He thought about the fact that an entire region of space had been erased from history. Go, he said. Jiwon punched the controls. The Time's distant shore times leaped forward, crossing the border into forbidden space. For 10 seconds, nothing happened. Then the alarms started screaming. Contact, Somin yelled. Multiple contacts approaching fast. From where? Jiwon demanded. Everywhere. The view screen lit up with ships. Dozens of them. Maybe hundreds. They came from all directions, surrounding the Times. Distant shore, times and moments. But they were not human ships. What are those? Dae-hyun breathed. The ships were massive and ancient-looking. Their hulls were covered in weapons, and they were all pointed at the Times' distant shore asterisk. Solak warships, Kyung-soo said calmly. Automated defense fleet. Still active after 400 years. They are targeting us, Salmon screamed. But before the alien ships could fire, space itself seemed to tear open. New ships appeared, decloaking all around them. These ships were human. Sleek and deadly, and so numerous, they blotted out the stars. A voice came through the communications system. It was calm and commanding. Unknown vessel. This is Admiral Taejin of the Human Border Fleet. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. You have entered a restricted zone. Jiwon's hands moved to comply before she even thought about it. What is happening? Dae-hyun asked Kyung-soo. The human observer looked out at the massive fleet that had appeared around them. You wanted to know why the maps end at human space, he said. Now you are going to find out. I hope you can handle the truth. The human warship was enormous. The Time's distant shore times fit inside its landing bay like a toy. Armed soldiers met them as they came down the ramp, but they were not rough. They were polite, professional. That somehow made it worse. Admiral Taejin was waiting in the observation deck. He was an older man, with tired eyes and gray in his hair. When he looked at Dae-hyun, there was no anger in his expression, just sadness. "I am sorry you came here," the admiral said. "I truly am." "Are we prisoners?" Ji-won asked. Her hand was still near her weapon, though 20 guns were pointed at her. "No," Taejin said. "Prisoners we could let go. You are witnesses now." "That is different." He gestured to the massive window that looked out into space. "Come. See what you traveled so far to find." Dae-hyun walked to the window on shaking legs. Outside, the ancient alien warships still hung in space, surrounded by the human fleet. But beyond them, he could see something else. Planets, stations, and all of it was wrong. "Those worlds," he whispered. "Yes," Taejin said quietly. A young human soldier stepped forward. His name tag read, Ji-hoon. He looked barely old enough to be in uniform. "Sir, Dr. Unji is ready for them in the memorial wing." "1. Thank you." Taejin turned to Dae-hyun and the others. "There is someone you need to meet. Someone who can explain what happened here better than I can. But I warn you, what you are about to learn will change how you see the galaxy forever, and you cannot unlearn it." "We came for the truth," Dae-hyun said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Then you shall have it. Follow me." They walked through corridors that were too clean, too perfect. Soldiers saluted as the admiral passed. Some of them looked at Dae-hyun with pity. That was the worst part. The pity. The memorial wing was huge. The walls were covered in screens, thousands of them, showing images. Faces. So many faces. Different species. Different worlds. All dead. Dae-hyun realized. All gone. Dr. Unji stood in the center of the room. She was a small woman, with kind eyes that had seen too much horror. When she spoke, her voice was gentle. "Welcome," she said. "I am the keeper of this place. The keeper of memories that the galaxy chose to forget." She gestured to the screens. "These are the Solak, all 42 billion of them, who lived 400 years ago." Salmon made a choking sound. 42 billion? "Yes," Yoonji said. "They were the greatest empire in this region of space. They controlled over 60 star systems. They had technology more advanced than most species today. They were powerful. They were proud." She paused. "And they made a terrible mistake." She touched a control, and the screens changed. Now they showed human cities. Old Earth. People in clothing from centuries past, walking streets that looked almost primitive compared to modern galactic standards. "This is humanity 400 years ago," Unji continued. "We had just developed faster than light travel. We sent out colony ships, slow and clumsy, to find new worlds. We were excited. We thought we would find friends in the stars." The images changed again. Now they showed destruction. Human ships burning. Colonies under attack. People running. Screaming. Dying. "The Solak found our colony ships," Yoonji said, her voice hard now. "They studied us. Decided we would make excellent slaves. Humans are adaptable, you see. We can work in many different environments. We breed quickly. We were perfect for their labor force." Dae-hyun felt sick. He knew where this was going. "They attacked Earth," Yoonji said. "Sent a fleet to enslave our homeworld. They thought it would be easy. We had barely reached the stars. After all, what could we do against an empire that had ruled for thousands of years?" The screens showed space battles. Human ships, small and desperate, fighting against massive Solak warships, and losing. "For 6 months, we lost," Yoonji said. "They pushed us back to Earth itself. Billions died. Our cities burned. The Solak fleet surrounded our world. ready to land their armies and put chains on every human alive. She smiled, and it was the coldest thing Daehyun had ever seen. That was their mistake, she said. They gave us 6 months. 6 months to adapt. 6 months to build. 6 months to get angry. The screens changed one last time. Now they showed different human ships. Bigger ones. Stranger ones. Ships that looked like they had been built by people who had stopped caring about rules and started caring only about survival. We broke every law of physics we could find, Unji said. We turned our factories into weapons plants. We taught children how to build bombs. We took every piece of technology we had and made it into something that could kill. And then we went to war. Not a war to defend, a war to erase. The images showed the counterattack. Human fleets, massive beyond counting, falling on the Solak Empire like a hammer. And the Solak burned. We did not just defeat them, Unji said quietly. We erased them. Every world they held, we glassed. Every station, we destroyed. Every ship, we hunted down. It took us 50 years, but we found every last Solak in the galaxy, and we killed them all. The room was silent, except for Saman's quiet crying. Why? Daehyun asked. His voice sounded strange to his own ears. Why not just make peace after you won? Because they had to serve as a lesson, Admiral Taejin said, speaking for the first time since they entered the room. We needed the galaxy to know what happens when you threaten humanity's existence. We needed a warning that would last forever. So you erased them from history, Jiwon said. She sounded hollow. Made everyone forget they existed. Yes, Unji said. We contacted every species in the region. Made them a deal. Help us remove the Solak from all records. Or become the next Solak. Most agreed immediately. A few had to be convinced. But eventually, everyone understood. The maps were redrawn. History was edited. And the region beyond human space became a graveyard that no one was allowed to remember. Jihoon, the young soldier, stepped forward. He looked at Daehyun with eyes that seemed too old for his face. We do not want to be monsters, he said. But when you push humans to the edge, when you threaten everything we love, we will become whatever we need to become to survive. Daehyun thought of all the species in the galaxy. The Vril, the Tolgrim, the Korathi, and 100 others. All of them living peacefully with humans for 300 years. All of them thinking humans were just another friendly species. None of them knowing what humans really were. Why are you showing us this? He asked. Why now? Unji and Taejin exchanged looks. The Admiral nodded. Because something is coming, Unji said. Our deep space monitors detected a transmission 3 months ago. From beyond even the Solak's old territory. From a part of space that has been dark for 10,000 years. She brought up a new image on the screens. It showed a probe. Ancient and worn. This is a Vryn scout probe, she said. The Vryn were a species that conquered most of the galaxy before recorded history began. Then, they vanished. Everyone assumed they died out or left the galaxy entirely. But this probe tells a different story. The probe's message played. It was in a language that sounded like metal scraping on stone. But the translation appeared below it in text that made Daehyun's blood run cold. Suitable conquest targets identified. Returning to homeworld. Fleet deployment. In 14 months. The Vryn are coming back, Taejin said. And they are bringing an army. Saman sank to the floor, her legs giving out. Jiwon cursed in her native language. Kyungsu just stood there, looking at the probe image with grim acceptance. How big? Daehyun asked, though he was not sure he wanted to know. The historical records we have suggest their fleet will be 50 times larger than the combined military forces of every current galactic species, Unji said, including humanity. Then we are all dead, Jiwon said, from where she sat on the floor. Maybe, Taejin said, Or maybe not. That depends on what the galaxy decides to do in the next 14 months. He turned to face them fully. We have been preparing for something like this for 300 years. Beyond the border, in the graveyard we made of the Solak Empire, we have been building fortress worlds, weapon platforms, fleets that no one has ever seen. We knew that someday, something worse than the Solak might come, and we wanted to be ready. Why tell us? Daehyun asked again. Why not just let us go home? Because we cannot do this alone, Unji said simply. The Vrin are too many. We need allies. We need the galactic community to understand what we really are before they decide whether to trust us. You came looking for the truth. Now you have it. What you do with it is up to you. Daehyun looked at the screens showing 42 billion dead faces. He thought about the burned worlds outside the window. He thought about what humanity had done when pushed to the edge. And he thought about what was coming. Take us home, he said quietly. We need to warn the council. Yes, Taejin agreed. You do. And then they will have to decide. Stand with the monsters who erased an empire, or stand alone against something even worse. As they left the memorial wing, Daehyun looked back one last time at the screens full of dead faces. The Solak had learned what humanity was capable of. Soon, the Vrin would learn the same lesson. The question was whether anyone would survive the teaching. The Council of Species met in the Grand Chamber on Vertex Prime. Daehyun had never been inside this room before. It was huge, with seats for representatives from 40 different civilizations. Today, every seat was full. Word had spread fast. Daehyun stood at the center podium, trying not to shake. His antennae were flat against his head with nervousness. Around him sat the most powerful beings in the galaxy, and they were all staring at him like he had lost his mind. Let me understand this correctly, said Dongyun, the council leader. He was Korathi, with silver scales and 3 eyes that saw too much. You illegally crossed into restricted human space, and you are claiming that humans committed genocide against an entire species we have never heard of? Yes, Daehyun said. His voice came out smaller than he wanted. And then these same humans, instead of killing you for trespassing, showed you evidence of this genocide and warned you about an ancient threat that is supposedly returning to destroy us all. Yes, Donghyun leaned back in his seat. Does anyone else find this story difficult to believe? Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Daehyun felt his heart sinking. They thought he was crazy, or lying, or both. I have proof, he said desperately. The data from the old maps, the sensor readings from the dead worlds, the transmission from the Vrin probe, proof that could have been fabricated by the humans, interrupted a Tolgrim counselor. Why should we believe any of this? Because it is true, said a new voice from the entrance. Everyone turned. Soyun walked into the chamber, like she owned it. The human ambassador was a tall woman, with sharp eyes and a confident stride. She had been quiet for years, mostly staying in the background during council sessions. Not today. Ambassador, Dongyun said carefully. This is a closed session. Not anymore, Soyun replied. She walked to stand beside Daehyun at the podium. Everything this young Vril has told you is true. We did destroy the Solak Empire. All 62 worlds. All 42 billion of them. And yes, we erased them from your maps and your history. The chamber erupted. Voices shouted over each other in a dozen languages. Donghyun had to activate the sound dampeners to restore order. You admit to genocide? He asked, his voice cold with shock. I admit to survival, Soyun said. The Solak attacked Earth. They tried to enslave our entire species. We responded, the only way that would ensure our safety. We made certain they could never threaten us or anyone else ever again. By murdering billions. By ending a threat permanently. Soyun's voice was hard as steel. I will not apologize for my species choosing to live. But I am not here to debate ancient history. I am here because what Daehyun said about the Vrin is also true. And we have less time than we thought. She pulled out a data device and projected an image above the podium. It showed a region of deep space, far beyond any explored territory. And in that region, lights were moving. Thousands of them. This was taken by our deep space arrays 6 hours ago, Soyun said. The Vrin fleet has begun moving. They will reach the edge of galactic civilization in 8 months, not 14. They are faster than we calculated. 7. A new figure appeared at the chamber entrance. Minji was young for a human, with nervous energy and quick movements. She practically ran to the podium. "Sorry I am late," she said, not sounding sorry at all. "I was decoding the latest transmissions." She looked at the council. The Vrin are sending messages ahead of their fleet, broadcasting to every star system they detect. I managed to translate one. Please quote. I managed to translate one. She played the audio. It was the same terrible scraping sound Daehyun had heard before. But Minji's translation made it worse. Inferior species detected. Biological resources suitable for processing. Resistance will be met with extermination. Compliance will result in efficient harvest. Stand by for subjugation. The chamber went silent. Harvest, whispered a counselor. They mean to harvest us? The Vrin do not see other species as people. Minji explained. According to the historical data we have recovered, they see us as resources. Useful, raw materials. They will take everything we have, including our bodies, and turn it all into fuel for their empire. Dong-Yun looked like he had aged 10 years in 10 minutes. How many ships? So-Yoon brought up another image. It showed the Vrin fleet in more detail. The numbers on the screen made Daehyun feel faint. Current estimate is 75,000 warships, So-Yoon said. Each one approximately 5 times larger than our biggest vessels. The entire galactic combined fleet numbers. Maybe 1,500 ships. We are outnumbered, 50 to 1. Then we are dead, someone said. Not necessarily. A new voice spoke from the doorway. This time, it was Jae-won, the commander of the alien coalition forces. He was a massive being. A vril like Daehyun, but from a warrior caste. If we unite our forces, coordinate our defenses, we might be able to hold key systems long enough to... Long enough to what? Soyun interrupted. Die more slowly? I respect you. But your forces, combined with ours, would last maybe 6 weeks against the Vrin. We need more than coordination. We need a miracle. Or we need what you have been hiding beyond the border, Dong-Hyun said quietly. You said you have been building for 300 years. Show us. So-Yoon looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded. Very well. But understand this. What you are about to see represents the sum total of human paranoia and preparation. We built it all because we swore we would never be threatened with extinction again. Some of you will call us monsters for what we made. But if you want to survive the Vrin, you will need these monsters on your side. She activated a new projection. It filled the entire chamber with images of what lay beyond the human border. And the council members stared in absolute horror. Fortress worlds. Not just defended planets, but entire worlds that had been converted into weapons platforms. Moons hollowed out and filled with guns. Stations the size of cities, bristling with so many weapons they blotted out the stars behind them. We call it the Silent Wall, So-Yoon said. 300 years of construction. Every resource we could spare went into building defenses that could stop anything. We have 50 fortress worlds, 200 battle stations, and a fleet of 9,000 warships that no one in the current galaxy has ever seen because they never leave the wall. 9,000, Jae-won breathed. That is more than the entire rest of the galaxy combined. Yes, So-Yoon said simply. We prepared for the worst. And now the worst is coming. Dong-Hyun stood from his seat. He looked old and tired. Why did you never tell us about this? Why hide such strength? Because we did not want to scare you, So-Yoon said. For 300 years, We have been your trading partners, your allies, your friends. We did not want you to see us as threats, but now you need to see us as we really are. Humanity is the species that built weapons to kill gods, and we are offering to stand between you and the Vryn. But we cannot do it alone. What do you need from us? Asked a counselor. Everything, Soyun said. Your fleets, your soldiers, your factories, your scientists. We need the entire galactic community to mobilize for war. The Vryn are coming for all of us. If we stand divided, we die. If we stand together, we might survive. And if we refuse? Dongyun asked. If we choose not to trust species that committed genocide, then you die alone, Soyun said flatly. The Vryn will not spare you because you stayed neutral. They will harvest you the same as everyone else. Your only choice is whether you die fighting alongside us or die hiding from us. The chamber erupted again. Arguments broke out. Some species wanted to ally with the humans immediately. Others called for neutrality. A few demanded that humanity be expelled from the council for its past crimes. Daehyun stood at the podium, forgotten in the chaos. He looked at Soyun, who met his eyes with a sad smile. I am sorry, she said quietly, only to him. Sorry that you had to be the one to learn the truth. Sorry that your galaxy is about to become a battlefield. I wanted to know why the maps ended at human space, Daehyun said. Now I wish I had never asked. Most people do, Soyun agreed. But knowing changes nothing. The Vryn are still coming. The only question now is whether your people will fight. Daehyun thought about the burned worlds beyond the border. The 42 billion dead Solok, whose only crime had been threatening humanity. He thought about what the humans had become in response to that threat. And he thought about what the Vryn would do to every species in the galaxy if no one stopped them. I will fight, he said. My people may not, but I will. Soyun put a hand on his shoulder. Then you are braver than most. Come. Let me show you what we built to kill the monsters. Maybe it will give you hope. Why? They left the council chamber together, walking through halls that echoed with arguments and fear. Behind them, the galaxy's leaders shouted and debated, trying to decide if they should trust the species that had erased an empire. Ahead of them, 8 months away, the Vryn fleet drew closer, and beyond the border that ended all maps, humanity's silent wall waited in the dark, ready for the war that had been 400 years in coming. Daehyun just hoped it would be enough. The war came faster than anyone expected. The Vryn fleet did not slow down. It did not send diplomats or make demands. It simply arrived at the edge of galactic space and began destroying everything in its path. 3 outer colonies vanished in the first week, 12 more in the second. The transmissions from those worlds all ended the same way with screaming. Daehyun stood on the bridge of the Times, unbowed asterisk, humanity's flagship, and watched the tactical display with growing horror. Red markers showed Vryn positions. They covered half the screen already. They are moving faster than we predicted, said Captain Hanwell. She was a calm woman with steel-gray hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. At this rate, they will reach the core worlds in 4 weeks. Then we move up the timeline, said Admiral Taejin. The last 8 months had aged him. We make our stand at the Silent Wall. Send the word to all allied fleets. Everyone who is coming needs to be there in 3 days. What about the species that refused to join us? Asked Yuna. She was Tolgrim, the first non-human to command a human warship. Her vessel, the Times Solidarity Asterisk, carried a mixed crew from 6 different species. Do we defend their space anyway? We defend everyone, Hanwell said firmly. Vryn do not care about politics. Everyone is a target. Everyone needs protection. Daehyun had spent the last 8 months working with the human military, helping coordinate the allied forces. His own people, the Vril, had eventually voted to join the defense. So had most species, but not all. Some still did not trust humanity. They remembered the dead Solak, even if they had never heard the name before. Those species were dying now. The Vryn did not spare the neutral. "Sir," called out Minji from the communication station, "we are getting reports from the forward scouts. The main Vryn fleet has been spotted. It is heading straight for human space." "Of course it is," Taejin said quietly. "They can sense where the real threat is. How long until they reach the wall?" 72 hours. Then we have 3 days to prepare for the end of the galaxy as we know it. Taejin looked around the bridge. "Get me, Sang-hyun. If we are going to survive this, we need every advantage we can get." Sang-hyun arrived an hour later. Dae-hyun had heard stories about him but never met him before. The man was more machine than flesh now. His body rebuilt with technology salvaged from the Solak War. Half his face was metal. One eye glowed with artificial light. He moved with mechanical precision. "You asked for me, Admiral?" His voice had a strange echo to it. "I need to know if we can use it," Taejin said simply. Everyone on the bridge knew what it meant. The Solak weapon. The thing humanity had found in the ruins of the empire they destroyed. The thing they had been afraid to use for 400 years. "The weapon is ready," Sang-hyun said. "But you know the cost. Once we activate it, there is no going back. It will change everything." "Everything is already changing," Taejin said. "The Vryn are going to kill us all unless we stop them. If that weapon gives us a chance, we have to take it, even if it makes us worse than the Solak ever were?" "Yes." Sang-hyun was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded. "I will begin the activation sequence. But Admiral, I pray you are making the right choice." "So do I," Taejin said. "So do I." The Allied fleet gathered at the silent wall over the next 3 days. Dae-hyun watched them arrive from the Times. Unbowed asterisks. Observation deck. Ships from 40 different species, all coming together to make a stand. It should have been beautiful. Instead, it felt like watching mourners gather for a funeral. Impressive, is it not? Yuna came to stand beside him. "I never thought I would see so many species working together. We are all afraid of the same thing," Dae-hyun said. "Fear is a great motivator. Is that all this is? Fear?" Dae-hyun thought about it. "No," he said finally. "I think some of us actually believe we can win." "And what do you believe?" "I believe the Vryn should have stayed in the dark where they belonged." The Vryn fleet arrived on schedule. It came out of faster-than-light travel, like a wall of metal and death. 75,000 ships, just as the scouts had reported. Maybe more. The sensors could not count them all. The Allied fleet numbered barely 5,000 vessels, even with humanity's hidden fleet added in. They were outnumbered 15 to 1. "All ships, battle positions," Haenel ordered. Her voice was calm but hard. "This is not a fight for territory or resources. This is a fight for survival, for the right to exist. Make them pay for every inch of space." The Vryn attacked without warning. One moment, they were holding position. The next, the space between the fleets, filled with weapons fire so dense it looked like a solid wall of light. The battle was chaos. Dae-hyun had studied military history, but nothing prepared him for the reality of war on this scale. Ships died in seconds, torn apart by weapons that turned matter into energy. Entire squadrons vanished in single strikes. The Allied forces fought back desperately, but it was like fighting a tsunami with a bucket. "We are losing," Yuna reported from the tactical station. "Casualties at 30% and climbing. The Vryn are pushing through our defensive lines." "Deploy the fortress worlds," Taejin ordered. "Show them what we built." The human fortress worlds activated. Entire planets began firing weapons that made regular ship guns look like toys. Massive beams of energy carved through the Vryn fleet, destroying dozens of ships at a time. The fortress stations joined in, creating a crossfire that turned space itself into a death zone. The Vryn advance slowed, then stopped. For one beautiful moment, Dae-hyun thought they might actually hold. Then the Vryn adapted. Their ships changed formation. Weapons that had been firing energy beams switched to projectiles. Shields that had been weak to certain frequencies strengthened. Within minutes, they had analyzed the human defenses and found the weaknesses. "They are learning," Haenel said, her calm finally cracking. "They are adapting to everything we throw at them." "Of course they are," Sang-Yun said. He had come to the bridge, his mechanical eye glowing brighter. "The Vryn conquered the galaxy before. They know every trick, every tactic. They have seen it all before." "The Vryn, close knew too. Then how do we stop them?" Daehyun asked. "We show them something they have never seen." Sang-Hyun turned to Taejin. "Admiral, we are out of options. It has to be now." In quote. Taejin closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, his decision was made. "Do it. Activate the Solak weapon." Sang-Hyun moved to a special console that had been sealed until this moment. He entered a code that only he knew. Deep in the bowels of the times, unbowed asterisk. Something ancient and terrible woke up. "What is happening?" Yuna asked. "We found something in the ruins of the Solak Empire," Hanuel explained quietly. "A weapon they were building when we destroyed them. A weapon designed to unmake reality itself at a quantum level. We finished it. And we swore we would never use it unless we had no choice. And now we have no choice," Taejin said. The weapon fired. It was not like other weapons. There was no beam, no explosion. Instead, space itself seemed to ripple, like water disturbed by a stone. The ripple spread outward from the time's unbowed asterisk, washing over the Vryn fleet. And where it touched, the Vryn ships simply stopped existing. Not destroyed. Not damaged. Just gone. Erased from reality, like they had never been there at all. The ripple spread for 100,000 kilometers, wiping out a quarter of the Vryn fleet in seconds. The remaining Vryn ships pulled back, their formations breaking for the first time. "It worked," Yuna whispered. "It actually worked." "At what cost?" Daehyun asked, looking at Sang-Hyun. The cyborg had collapsed at his console, smoke rising from his mechanical parts. "The weapon draws power from the user," Hanuel said quietly. "It takes life energy and converts it to the reality-breaking effect." Sang-Hyun knew it would kill him. But Sang-Hyun was not dead yet. He raised his head, his remaining organic eye focused on Taejin. "Again," he rasped. "Fire it again. I can give you one more shot." "No," Taejin said. "You have done enough." "Not enough," Sang-Hyun said. "Not while they still live." He entered the code again, his mechanical fingers moving even as parts of his body began to fail. The weapon charged up, drawing the last of his life into its systems. "For Earth," Sang-Hyun whispered. "For all the worlds we protect." He fired. The second ripple was larger than the first. It spread across the entire battlefield, catching half of the remaining Vryn fleet. Ships vanished by the thousands. The space that had been filled with the enemy was suddenly empty, and Sang-Hyun fell silent, his mechanical parts going dark as the last of his life drained away. The Vryn fleet was broken. Of the 75,000 ships that had arrived, barely 20,000 remained. They tried to regroup, but the Allied fleet surged forward, pressing the advantage. Human ships fought alongside Vril and Tolgrim and Karathi. Species that had been strangers 8 months ago now died together, defending each other. The battle raged for another 6 hours. But the Vryn were broken. Slowly, impossibly, they began to retreat. Then the retreat became a rout. The survivors fled back into deep space, disappearing the way they had come. The galaxy was saved, but the cost was terrible. 2,000 Allied ships lost, 15 fortress stations destroyed, millions dead, maybe tens of millions. And Sang-Hyun, who had given everything to ensure victory. Daehyun stood in the aftermath, looking at the debris field that stretched across space. So much death. So much sacrifice. "We won," Yuna said. She sounded exhausted. We actually won. For now, Hanul said. She was looking at the sensor readings showing the direction the Vryn had fled. They will return someday. With more ships. More weapons. And we will have to be ready. Then we will be ready together, said a new voice. Bauman entered the bridge. He was young, a human diplomat who had been organizing relief efforts. The Council has sent a message. All species, even those who refuse to fight, are requesting to join the defensive alliance. They want to help build new fortresses, new fleets. They want to stand together, because they saw what we are capable of, Taejin said bitterly. Now they trust us because they fear us. No, Daehyun said. Everyone turned to look at him. They trust us because we bled for them, because we could have used that weapon at the start and saved ourselves the casualties. But you waited. You let your people die first, only using the terrible weapon when there was no other choice. That is what they saw. Not monsters, but guardians who hate what they must become to protect others. Bauman nodded. The Council wants to make it official. Extend the maps beyond human space. Show what is really there, not a graveyard, but a wall. A wall that humanity built and that all species will now help maintain. Weeks later, Daehyun stood again at his terminal in the Galactic Mapping Institute. But this time, he was not alone. Cartographers from every species worked alongside him, updating the charts together. The map no longer ended at human space. It extended beyond, showing the silent wall in all its terrible glory. The fortress worlds, the battle stations, the memorial sites where the Solak had died and where Sangyun had made his final sacrifice. The maps now told the truth. All of it. Do you think they will come back? Minho asked. The human had been Daehyun's friend through everything. The Vryn? Ah, yes, Daehyun said. Someday. But when they do, they will find something they did not expect. What? A galaxy united, species working together, building together, watching the dark together. Daehyun finished updating the last sector and saved the new map. The map used to end at human space because that was where the monsters stopped. Now it extends beyond, because that is where the Guardians begin. All of us. The new map spread across the galaxy, carried by every ship and viewed by every species. For the first time in 400 years, the truth was shown. The dead, Solak. The sacrifice of humanity. The threat that still waited in the dark. And standing against that darkness, not just humans anymore, but everyone. The map no longer ended at human space. It ended at the edge of the light they would all defend together. And that made all the difference.